Hello, students. As you continue to unpack the contents of this course, I want you to make sure that you take a good look at the syllabus and the course requirements. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email or to call me. I'm very accessible. I try to get back to you as soon as I can, but typically at least within 24 hours if I happen to be busy at the time. There are a couple of assignments that they might seem self-explanatory. I just want to make sure we kind of have a little conversation here, just to make sure that you're hearing what you need to hear and getting the information that you need. One of the main elements of this course is going to be a participatory element of doing field work. It's observation and then reflection and analyzing. And so, and when I say reflection and analyzing, I really want you to get to that point of analyzing things. And so a lot of times we'll just reflect or recount. You'll notice my course is not as heavy in terms of just recounting bare facts. I'm much less concerned that you can regurgitate information. Information can be acquired, but the ability to analyze, the ability to process, and to apply things, that's a much greater skill. And so that's really what I want to focus on. So there are 4 fieldwork assignments, and these are due sporadically throughout the term. The first one is a neighborhood walkthrough, and I want you to take a neighborhood walkthrough that surrounds your church or community building. In a separate video, I have a short discussion on signal systems, and I give you a chart that you can use, which will help you really think through what are you seeing, hearing, smelling, etc. as you do your walkthrough. Now, I'll just list these other ones very quickly. There's going to be an interfaith interview and a religious site visit and a focused prayer group. So you say, well, I'm really familiar with my church neighborhood. Okay, that's fine. It doesn't have to be your church neighborhood. Perhaps you're thinking through your religious site visit. Okay, maybe you're going to go to a mosque or a Buddhist temple, a Hindu temple. I would be okay if you wanted to do a walk around of that neighborhood to maybe get a better understanding of their context. That would be okay as well. So look at all 4 of these assignments. Don't look at them one by one, because I think you can kind of maximize your time and your effort by grouping some of these together. For instance, there's the interfaith interview and a religious site visit. Well, if they're due on different dates, so be aware of that. But you can do the work side of it, the acquire the information side of it, simultaneously. And so taking a religious site visit is good. It's a great place to meet the person that you're going to interview. And vice versa, if you're interviewing someone from another faith, maybe that's your point of contact. Maybe ask them where they worship and ask them if you could tag along with them. And then that would give you the opportunity to go with them. Now, I want to be very clear. As you go to the religious site visit, some students have a concern about this. I don't, if you have a concern, feel free to email me. I would like to recommend taking a friend. I'm aware that probably some of you might be taking this here on the Houston campus, so you might have a fellow student, but maybe you're taking this somewhere not in Houston. Take a friend or family member. I think it's important to go very prayerfully. I think you want to pray before you go, one for understanding and strength, truth. Another is for opportunity and for wisdom and vision of what God might want to happen. I do think you should be follow the lead of your conscience. I would recommend you not participate in religious elements of the service. I've visited services from most other faith backgrounds, almost all of them. And there's only been 1 or 2 occasions where I was encouraged to participate, and I just very politely said, I'm sorry, this is for a student project, I'm just a silent observer, and they never had a problem with that. And so I would say don't violate your conscience and don't do something that you're not comfortable doing, but if you explain the purpose of your visit, that's typically helpful. Also, if you're going to a religious site visit, I think it's helpful to call ahead or email ahead and let them know that you're coming, just so that they're not surprised when they see you there. I've had students do this before, just friends do this before as I've encouraged them or taken them out, and so they have some funny stories. If you have a funny story, please share it with me. I promise to laugh with you and not at you. And so the interfaith visit and the religious site visit, I would say think of those 2 with the other one in mind, whichever one you're starting with. They're still due on the regular due dates, but this is a case where you can help yourself out by doing them together. Finally, number 4, focused prayer group. You can do this as part of something official that's already happening. Maybe your church or a neighborhood church has a focused prayer night for missions or for some global issue. It could be for immigration. It could be for refugees. It could be for human trafficking. It could be for poverty. All of those things would be fine places to fulfill this assignment. Maybe there's nothing going on in your city. That's okay as well. You can sponsor your own prayer meeting. If you're going to sponsor your own prayer meeting, I've put a couple of resources here. There's Operation World. This is a book. Probably your church library has it. If it doesn't have it, you should buy a copy and donate it to them so that they have it. But it's just a big, thick, telephone-looking book that has every single country listed, and it has a little overview for it and some prayer points. And so you could do this with a Sunday school. You could do this with a home group. You could do this with some family and friends, but include others. Don't just do it by yourself. Joshua Project, this is a website, or peoplegroups.org, or maybe .info, check both. There might be one for both, is what I mean. They also have some really good up-to-date info where you could look at a people group. So maybe your church has a mission partnership in another country that maybe you're not as connected to or aware of. Find out what people group they are and print off the info from Joshua Project. And you can host a small prayer meeting for your missionaries there. You can reach out to your missionaries there and just email them, ask them what can you be praying for. So there's a number of ways of taking care of option number 4. Now, once you've done the field work, I want you to write 500 to 800 word reflection. And so I want you to have 3 parts: what and where of the student's activity. Where did you go and what did you do? Number 2 is critical reflection of what was experienced. Don't just go and soak up and say, they stood, they prayed, they sang, they danced, we went home. I want you to reflect on what you're seeing. Use those signal systems. And number 3, integration of course material. This is something I don't want you to miss. Integration is one of my favorite academic, religious, and missiological words. I think too often we have information siloed off. And so as you're reading your course documents, be thinking about how does this relate to what are the projects that you're going to be doing. Because in all of the assignments, I want you to interact with the course material. And so don't just read the course material to get it done, to answer the questions on the quiz. Read the course material to really put it into your brain in terms of how you're going to think and process and interact. Even if you don't agree with the course material, that's fine. That can still be part of how you're thinking and reacting and analyzing. So integrating course material, what that means is using quotes and references. Okay, it doesn't have to be extensive, but I just want to see that you are seeing a connection between your walking around daily community life, aka your fieldwork assignments. Granted, these are very scripted events, and the course material that you're reading. I think this is a good discipline to start thinking, how do you apply, very practically, how do you apply what you're learning to your context? The second thing that we want to talk about is the MAP, the Mission Application Project. Again, please read the syllabus very, very carefully. This is designed to help you integrate course concepts and material into practical ministry work. So I want you, if you're not already doing it, I want you to be doing some practical mission work. And so this combines 10 contact hours of mission work or shadowing mission work. If you are having trouble understanding what that means or finding a place in your city, again, feel free to reach me. I'm happy to help you know where to look for those kinds of things. But it doesn't just, when you think of what is missions, a lot of times you might think, well, missions is cross-cultural work going to, a poor country, or missions is cross-cultural work where we have to learn another language or go across the ocean. And we don't think maybe topically about what is it that missionaries do, what do they accomplish. And so I threw out some categories here for you, and these are things like evangelism, interfaith dialogue, mercy, advocacy, justice, and reconciliation. And so you can take part in a ministry that is doing any one of those things or multiple of those things, and that would satisfy the requirement for it being a mission activity. Okay, so you don't need to take a mission trip in the middle of this course. Don't get worried. But you will need to find, if your church is not doing a project on one of these, it can be something you're already doing. That is okay. There's going to be a forum, and this will be a public forum. It's public so that you can help each other out as you're describing things. I meant to say under the field work, especially for the prayer vigil, for those of you who are grouped up in Houston or grouped up in other cities, I think it's important to help each other out on that regard. So if you see a prayer vigil in your area or some church hosting a prayer gathering, please share that on the student discussion board. So even if you can't make it, perhaps other students can fulfill that requirement, because I think sometimes that one can get away from students. So I'm going to have each of you declare very early on in the course what is your kind of topic that you're going to go for, the topic, that the ministry that you're shadowing or participating in is working in. And I want you to kind of put a little bit of thought, maybe a paragraph or so, of how is this going to look. It's a mildly graded assignment. This is mostly just to make sure that you're understanding and you're on track. And if you have any questions for me, that's a great place to ask those questions. Also, since that will be a public forum, look at other students, get ideas. So maybe you don't have a good idea, but if you see something another student's doing, that will help you out. So if you put in there, I'm going to sing in my church choir for 10 hours, this does not count as ministry activities. Great that you sing in your church choir, praise band, whatever, for 10 hours. Please do that. I'm sure they love it. But that's not the requirements for the course. Now, if your church has an outreach program, or your church has some kind of program to the homeless, or dealing with human trafficking or something like that, that would be okay. If you're already participating in that, that would be fine as well. But all of those need to be kind of stated, and then as you go, you can change it if you want to, but I would recommend, just for your own time's sake, not doing it, because at some point you're going to have to act on it. So you're going to do 10 hours of participation or observation in that ministry, and then number 3 is writing. So the paper shouldn't be less than 10 pages. Okay, you need at least 10 pages, and I want it to include 3 different parts. So number 1, I want you to introduce the topic of the ministry. So there's a ministry here in Houston called American Chinese Fellowship, and they are an outreach ministry to students, international students. So if you were going to participate in that, for example, in your first part of your paper, you would define, what does international student ministry look like? Now, I want you to have about 10 sources for this. I want to know, what are the different camps. So if you're doing if you're going to partner with a ministry that's doing evangelism, what are the different camps of evangelism, or the different styles of evangelism? If you're doing something that's with justice, what are the different views on justice ministries? You don't have to agree with any of them. I just want to see that you see kind of the broad scope for that topic. So most of the course is pretty broad and introductory, but on this particular topic, this is going to give you an opportunity to go deeper on one particular topic. So I want you to have about 10 sources in there. I'm not going to be super legalistic, but I want to see that what are the major camps of whatever topic ministry that you've picked. Number 2, I want you to describe the ministry that you practiced and or observed. And then number 3 is critical analysis and evaluation. I want this to use your course learning, the course required readings, and interact with, were they doing a good job? Is there something they could do better? Is there something that you're gleaning from this, kind of in an observational or discipleship way, that it impacted you or changed your view of something? And so really evaluate, what are they doing based on what you know. You're not just a passive observer that you're writing about it. You're also then saying, okay, here's what this means. And so that's what I want to know, is what is the meaning. Finally, the other assignment to be aware of, that's a larger assignment, is Roland Allen. It's a book review of Roland Allen, Missionary Methods. The original title was Missionary Methods, St. Paul or Ours. The current edition of this book says God's Plan. The subtitle is God's Plan for Missions According to Paul. But I want a 5-page review that's broken into 2 parts. The first part of this should cover the content of the book, and the second part should apply the material to your church ministry context. or if you're not in a church, it could be you could do this theoretically. Okay, you could apply this back on the ministry that you shadowed for your 10 hours for your map. So you could apply it there if you would rather do that. Roland Allen is an Anglican missionary a generation ago, and he was right. He was right at the turn of two really big paradigms. And as he wrote in his book, he picked a date and he said, "My book is not going to become relevant," and then he names the date. And he was fairly prophetic in that. His book was largely not accepted in the time that it was accepted. He was very critical of the colonial era, and so we'll talk more about that as we get further into the different paradigms in mission. So it's kind of an older book, but it's a classic in the field. So if you read this one, you've really latched into a classic in the field. So if you have any questions, please feel free, make some comments, and let me know.